Welcome to the Midnight Vigil, the channel where the stars are always right and there really is a monster hiding underneath your bed. So, this is a small update, another video from the Daily Scream. We're going to be talking about the Dark Universe apparently coming back from the dead, which is kind of fitting, I guess, considering that this is the monster universe and none of the classic Universal monster movies. None of the monsters ever really died, at least not permanently. So, this is artist Robert Vargas. He posted a picture from about 2 weeks ago on his Instagram where he said, great meeting with the Dark Universe team. We're going to be doing something. He's going to be contributing as an artist in some form. There's monster things in the works. Stay tuned. And pretty much everyone was running with this story that the Dark Universe wasn't dead and that it was coming back. If this is all news to you, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, Universal announced this whole thing with this super cringy video, the Dark Universe Monsters Legacy trailer, where they took black and white monster movies and they sort of filmed this, they cut it together in this montage over really, really horrible, bombastic action music. We're going to come back to that. I'll give my opinion on it. But this came out right before Tom Cruise's The Mummy came out. And, that movie didn't do what they were hoping it was going to do. Tom Cruise wasn't expensive. The budget was okay, but it flopped pretty bad in the United States. It made less than 100 million here, and the overseas market really saved it from embarrassment. So it finished. The last time I saw the numbers, it finished about 400 million, somewhere around in there, which is okay. But it's not okay if you're wanting to launch a cinematic universe, which is what the Dark Universe was or is. Universal trying to do a cinematic universe with all of their monster properties, and they were going to tie it together with Russell Crowe's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde character, who was going to appear in each incarnation as sort of the connective tissue. Well, The Mummy was okay, I guess. I didn't hate it, but the problem with this whole thing is no one, with one exception, no one is doing cinematic universes and actually succeeding except for Marvel. And I think that's because they really have creative vision. They have a big world, lots of characters. It feels more like a serialized movie, a serialized TV show than it does a movie series. The only other exception, which is a really good counterpoint to Universal's approach, is Warner Brothers' Conjuring universe. So we had Conjuring 1 and 2. There's going to be a third one eventually. We had Annabelle 1 and 2. There's going to be a third one eventually. We're getting The Nun later this year. We're apparently going to be getting The Crooked Man sometime after that. And I would kind of throw in Lights Out, even though it's not connected to the Warrens. But Lights Out is another film that came out around the Conjuring films. Another Warner Brothers horror movie that did really, really well. And I think the reason why their horror universe works and Universal's didn't is because Tom Cruise's The Mummy felt like Brendan Fraser's The Mummy, except it didn't have any of the personality or any of the charm that made those movies worth watching. The Conjuring films, sort of spearheaded by James Wan, who I'm a big fan of, those films actually try to scare you. That's the whole purpose of the universe. That's the point of the films. They're trying to scare the hell out of you. And they are pretty creepy. There are some pretty scary moments, so I'll give them credit. James Wan definitely knows what he's doing when it comes to horror films. The Tom Cruise Mummy had no horror, and it was all action. The horror was sort of just this backdrop to give them this sandbox that they could play in. Kind of like the Resident Evil films, where it's not really about Resident Evil, it's just about stupid action set pieces. That's kind of how I viewed the Tom Cruise Mummy movie. And the approach here, I just don't think is going to work because you're not scaring people. You don't have anything that's standing out. What is the point of bringing the monster films back? Again, and they've tried to do this a couple of times in recent years with varying success. Not really, but some successes. I liked the Wolfman reboot. I was disappointed we didn't get another one. Dracula Untold, disappointed we didn't get another one, but it didn't do very well. Neither did the Mummy. Neither did the Wolfman. The Mummy did okay, but again, another financial and critical disappointment. So they're not really nailing the approach here. The problem, I would say, is that there's no creative vision. You don't have someone at the helm who is trying to make smaller budgeted pictures, lesser known actors, real stories, real scares. I'm certain that you could bring these characters back and audiences would be receptive to watching them, because they're iconic. And it's kind of weird that Universal can't get it right now when they could get it right, in the bygone era of black and white films. I don't understand what's changed except for their approach. They're not interested in making niche horror films, which is what they should be doing. Instead, they're trying to play this global, globe-trotting, almost Tomb Raider-esque, action-y set pieces everywhere, Michael Bay explosions. And if you're trying to do an action movie, that's great, but don't bring back the monster legacy if that's all you're going to do with it. I remember a couple of years ago talking about creative vision. Guillermo del Toro was briefly involved, or Universal had approached him or whatever. It didn't end up working, but that's the kind of person that you would really need at the helm of this. Warner Brothers has James Wan. Fantastic guy. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to scare people. He's got a proven track record. Universal needs someone like that, like Guillermo del Toro, who has creative vision. He knows how to make films. He understands what's scary. I've said a lot of his movies are like living fairy tales, darker, creepier fairy tales. He gets monsters. He gets the appeal. He understands how to make sort of older fashioned movies. That's the kind of person they should have been going for. I don't really know what's going on. Everyone ran with the Robert Vargas story, Dark Universe maybe isn't dead. They've invested too much money into the branding, and they've announced all these films. We were supposed to be getting Bride of Frankenstein next, and that hasn't happened yet, and I don't think that it will, at least not in the incarnation that they wanted it to happen in. But eventually they're going to try again, because again, there's money to be made. They've spent way too much money coming up with all of this. The problem is their approach, I just think is totally wrong. But I mean, that's pretty much it. This is just a small story. I didn't really want to talk about it, but it just sort of blew up. Everyone took this guy's Instagram photo and they're, talking about what's going on, and Universal, what are you doing next? When is Bride of Frankenstein coming out? I just don't think that it is. But as usual, guys, I will update Dark Universe when it comes in. It's been about a year since The Mummy. We haven't really heard a whole lot about what's happening next. They delayed Bride of Frankenstein, and then it got taken off release, and who's going to be in it, who's going to be directing it, who's going to be writing it. All this stuff is up in the air. They thought they had it figured out, and then The Mummy didn't do well, and now the whole property is in jeopardy. But that's pretty much it. I just wanted to give a small update on what's going on with Universal. As usual, guys, if you like the video, feel free to subscribe. If you have a Twitter, you can follow me at Midnight Vigil. I will see you guys next time. Thanks.